what's going on in Facebook world. So what we have here tonight, there will be no voting action taken on anything. This is just strictly a discussion planning session that is going on here for County Commission. We have a few things on the agenda. There will be no voting action. Just want to wind up, saying that one more time. So basically, in order to keep this thing fluid and keep it moving well, at most, we'll have a 30-minute block for discussion for each one of the topics. Maybe done quicker, maybe done later, but that's what we'll shoot for, to keep it fluid and keep it moving. So with that being said, the first thing on the discussion list is longevity pay. Of course, what we have there with the longevity pay was a discussion that was brought up by the Sheriff's Department, basically to be able to hire officers in, say they have 17 years of service, to be able to bring those officers into our pay scale under the 17 years of service, giving some strict guidelines there on what would be followed, or if somebody had 8 years of service, wind up following those guidelines for either a deputy, corrections officer position, or a dispatch position. Now, during the course of the conversations that we wind up having, there was also a discussion of what would that also mean for other offices in the county as far as that goes, should there wind up being there. So, because that would wind up happening, that question would be asked, there's no doubt in my mind. So, how would you wind up defining what that experience would be, whether it wind up being trustee, register, finance, road department, and the list goes on and on for what you'd have for the departments. So, with that being said, I'll open the floor here, to County Commission here to kind of give their thoughts and feelings on the longevity pay idea. Ms. Sheila, you want to start?
I'm big on no discrimination, and if you do it for one department, you're gonna have food for everybody. That's the first thing I think we need to discuss. If you're gonna do it for one, you're gonna do it for the sheriff's department, you got to do it for the ambulance service.
Mr. Burke?
Yeah, I guess my thought is the offices who have like this administrative, more general type terms that anybody can come in with the experience, because there's not a lot of new hires from what I've looked at and seen that everybody has. So my fear or worry is that, I think you might have mentioned last time that, hey, I worked at Hardee's and I managed a shift, so there's your. But I don't know how you clearly do that. For the sheriff, it's a little more, because they're kind of tiered, right, lieutenant, officer. But for the offices, I don't know how to keep it straight. If that makes sense. It's just kind of my thoughts. I don't think.
Ms. Chitwood?
Echo what you had said, sorry. Echo what you said, but I see where she was coming from, but making sure that we're fair across the board. Me having an education background, I look at it. If I were to leave Oneida school system today and go to Scott County, I would get my years of service. So I think that we've got to find a balance there.
But that would be if you were going to another school system, right?
Yes. I mean, I couldn't leave the
Right.
school system and expect to,
To go to Alicia's office
and get my years of service.
Right.
Mr. Burke?
My concern is how this will affect our budget. I like the idea of it. I think it'd be fair to the employees, but I think that it would take a lot of money. But I'm not sure where they come from.
Mr. Tate?
I agree. That's we're definitely going to have to figure out how much money we're talking about and where it's going to come from. Whether it's through some style of tax, wheel tax, concession tax, land tax, whatever it be. And that's our challenge. It's on all of our minds, I'm sure. Our elderly is what I worry about the most. Is how are they going to be able to afford these tax raises that we're going to be applying to them if we apply them.
that everyone should be treated the same too and have to pay. And I know that's gonna be hard with our budget and stuff, but I think it should be equal throughout all the different places.
Ms. Keith?
I believe in fairness, but we're also gonna have to think about offices where there's shortages of people. So I don't know how we could keep people and if we don't have enough money to give raises. I mean, the police are hurting for officers, so I mean, I don't know the answer, but they're putting their lives in danger, and so are the EMT, and everybody's not doing that. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
I mean, they're going into homes, they're going into all kinds of dangerous places that other offices may not be doing. So I don't know the answer, but.
Mr. Payne?
I don't really see any fair way to do it. I mean, you may have someone coming from another area. I mean, we are Scott County. I mean, we like it or don't like it. We got our own tax rate, we got our own bills, and everybody would like to see people get more money. But I don't know, I think you're opening a can of worms, but how you gonna make it equitable across the whole pay scale for everybody that's involved? Like you said, you can't do it for one and not do it for everybody.
Ms. Steve?
I think everybody's made really good points. I do see where the sheriff wants to be able to have seasoned officers come from other places, because it would be hard if they're getting paid, let's just say 16 to come start at 14 or whatever. Like Jared said, with other offices, because I think if we do it for one, we should do it for others. But like with other offices, I don't know how you would do that. 'Cause like he said, there are tiers with the police department, but I don't know how you would do that. Maybe like for Felicia's office, determine how many years of service, or I don't really know anything about that. I don't want it to hurt our budget, so I mean, I think that we need to look at if that did happen, like how many positions, I mean, could that possibly entail, how much money it could be. I mean, I think the money is an issue. I just thought there's so many questions that we need to look at and answer each individual one before we can decide what we need to do. I think that's it, because everybody's already addressed everything, I think. So.
Ms. Gray?
Well, I feel the same way about everybody else. I think we all kind of feel the same way. We obviously want it to be equal, but with it being equal, you also can't, every office is different, every office has a different job, and you can't look at every office the same way. As Ms. Keaton said, our officers are putting their lives on the line for us each and every single day. The whole reason why I brought the proposal that I had brought was because there's no way I would put my life on the line for what these officers make. There's absolutely no way. And I don't see how we can expect them to. They deserve a raise. That's the reason we're here, is to try to figure out a way to possibly maybe be able to give that to them. And it's not to say that nobody else in any other office don't deserve a raise. I mean, obviously, no matter what job we work, we all want paid good. I look at the police officers as hazard pay because they are risking their lives. As far as the longevity paid, if we did that, yes, I agree that it would have to be across the board. But I feel like they would have to be, like, you can't just say, okay, you've worked in an office job for this long, so you count that as service. So I feel like that you would have to work in that position, whatever the particular position is, to get that. So like Felicia or Renee's office, if you worked in a county clerk's office, doing the job that a county clerk's office does, then you could get that, but not just because you work in a office setting. And the same with trustee, or register of deeds, or assessor of property. If you've worked in that particular field, doing that particular job, then yeah. And to me, that would be the fairest way to do it, because you can't say, okay, I've worked in this office job for this long amount of time, so since this is an office position, you know, you need to count this as time. That's not the way it works. I mean, you have to be able to know how to do the job, the particular job that you're gonna be doing.
Mr. Day?
On a lot of it. Deputies, it's a dangerous job, okay? I think it should be paid. I think we got one coming out with 16 or 17 years experience, you need to be paid. You get what you pay for, okay? That's bottom line, that's all I got to say.
Mr. Jeffers?
Well, I agree with, well, it's inevitable all across the range, everybody, no one wants to work for lower wages, obviously. But, I think the office holder should be at their discretion. I don't think that we're not trying to take any authority away from the office holder to limit them on who they can hire. That's correct. We're not trying to do that, right?
There would still want to be in the officer holder's discretion. I mean, they would have to sign off on, and I'm correct in that. Okay? Yeah. So, I mean, basically whatever you set out as your parameters, you know, for what you want to do for longevity pay, you basically have to have, you know, your office holder sign off on that they're in agreement with that, you know, as far as for their office, particular office.
But I think
But
the office holder.
there needs to be some direction to the office holder as well.
Yeah.
If the county commission wants to go that direction.
Yeah, but each position would have certain amount of longevity, whatever the longevity pay, I think. I don't think that we should try to tie the hands of the office holder, of who they're trying to hire and who they do hire. But, I thought that we had longevity pay was on the last agenda. We may have something along that line.
The only thing was longevity pay was just the pay scale was in the budget there as far as for 11 to 15 year service, 16, 20, 20 plus for that additional levels.
Yeah. I just don't want to see us, I'm just like everybody else, you know, I want everybody to have good paying jobs. That's what we're all here for. I mean, we want to make sure that our kids have it better than we do, and than we do. And, you know, I think it's gotta be fair. Same as everybody else.
Anybody else like to add anything to that?
I agree with John 100%. There needs to be direction by the office holder. We need to have some kind of direction for the office holder to tell us.
So basically, if nothing else, just wind up having a bit of a critique sheet. Basically, you know, each office holder saying this is what I would require as far as to say, as far as experience goes for the longevity pay to put it into one. Now, obviously, there would be different for corrections officers and police officers, because there you're going, for police officers, you're going to have to be post-certified. You know, and I believe the sheriff was basically talking about being post-certified, your full-time experience, you know, which, you know, Nashville can verify that for whatever they need. Same be for corrections officers. You know, how long have you been in the corrections officer? At what point were you certified to be a local corrections officer? And the same way it was a dispatcher. Now, I know we get into more technical details when we wind up talking about other office holders, and that would probably wind up taking a little bit of
Was it mentioned last time about maybe starting with the sheriff's department and then going to the other offices to see how it goes, or is that something that we can do? Because like you said, the sheriff's department is more straightforward as far as being certified and what kind of, background you have to have versus the others. So they've got like a chief deputy, and then the one below it, most offices do. So is it something we can try with the sheriff's department first, or is that not fair to try that first? I mean,
Well, we have an ambulance service also. You know, they have to be certified to do what they do.
Their job's hazardous too.
Right.
The hazards that the sheriff's department sees often include ambulance service.
Absolutely. And that would be one between that and of course, you know, you're definitely talking for the current positions you have there and everything, you definitely need to, you know, crunch the numbers to wind up saying exactly what you've got going on right now, because you may currently have officers that are working at that department that may have come from other departments that now can add that experience on to what they currently get. So, I mean, you'd have to definitely do an analysis of, you know, kind of where we're currently at, and then kind of make a bit of a prediction there, which you'd have to have in the future in order to get an amendment, you know, to try to do that, you know, to Ms. Ginger. So, I mean, yeah, so there's some work ahead. I mean, there's, you know, it's not like it's gonna be a magic wand and we're gonna wave it and it gets solved in one night. I mean, this is gonna take a couple of months to wind up getting this done, but at least we're having the discussion on where we kind of need to be with it. And so
I also
we're-
feel like if that is a decision that we think we might want to make, that, as Cody was saying earlier, we need to know where the money's gonna come from first. We can't just vote something in not knowing how it's gonna be paid for.
Exactly. Yeah. And at this point in time with the budget, you know, as far as GAM, I mean, it would have to come out of general fund. I mean, in order to cover that. So,
Something we thought about doing this over a longer period of time. I know we all want to get them up to, say, a $2 raise roughly. That's kind of what our goal is. But what if we do it over a longer period of time? If we say a 50-cent raise, 75 cents, you know, maybe move it up until we get to the goal we're looking for over 2 years, 3 years. About a year.
I see where you're going with that, and I can see where you're at, but I'll tell you, consider where you're at in the inflation world right now, and in order to make an immediate impact, you're gonna have to have that one large infusion. I mean, that's one thing that I was asking, Ms. Ginger about, you know, basically, you know, a 15% raise, you know, right off the bat. I mean, would take a deputy coming in the door without longevity pay involved, you know, would take you from $14.92 to $17.15. That's
So
where
are you talking about the longevity, or are you talking about a pay raise?
Well, longevity also, I mean,
Because the reason I ask is because, like, with all these construction companies, you know, people can come in and say, hey, I have this experience. And he will be like, okay, you've got this experience, so I won't start you out the bottom, but I'll start you out at this until you prove to me that you can do what you say you can do, and then you can get the rest. Is that what you're talking about?
that, or, I mean, just in general, so it don't hit our budget so hard next year. You know, just kind of trying to gradually move it in as we go. Budget wise as well, that's kind of, but yeah, that is what, you know, you need to prove your worth if that's what we're gonna pay.
And where's the money coming from?
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of what, that's where we're gonna get into the next realm. So, does anyone else have anything to contribute to the longevity pay while we're here? If not, we'll wind up moving on to, Commissioner Gray. I'll let you lead the way on the discussion on the wheel tax there to kind of give everybody a refresher.
What I had proposed at our last meeting was looking at possibly increasing wheel tax. The purpose of it was, to give the county sheriff officers a $2 raise, possibly generate monies to help balance next year's budget, have monies to use when needs arise, such as what we're talking about right now, and hopefully prevent us from having to raise land taxes. I think everybody was here. Did everybody get one of these papers last time? So basically, we were looking at, the population for the 2020 census was 22,039. For 2020, the property owners was at 12,143, which is 55% of our population. 2020 active motor vehicle registrations was 22,162, which is over 100% of our population. If we did a $10 increase on wheel tax, and as Commissioner Terry was saying earlier about our elderly, my proposal exempts 65 plus. Because I agree, our elderly have paid their dues. We shouldn't be putting any more tax on them than we have to. So if we exempt them, there's 17% of our population is 65 plus. So the $10 would generate $183,944 a year. If we did a $20 and exempt our elderly, that would generate $367,889 a year. The proposal of $2 raise for the county sheriff's office, and this is counting taxes, retirement, and our workman's compensation that we have to pay for those. It would be $147,954 a year. Their current pay right now, starting out at the bottom, with no experience and with no education, because with an education, all employees, no matter what department you work in, you get a certain amount for having an education, right? So this is without the education. Starting at the bottom, they make $14.93 an hour. If we gave them the raise, it would be $16.93. Our 6+ years officers make $17.18 now, and with the raise would give them $19.18. In Morgan County, the current rate for a non-certified officer is $18.50, and for a certified officer is $19. And for Campbell County, and this is what they start them out at. This isn't their seasoned officers. This is just what they start out with, no experience. And the Campbell County is $17.15, sorry.
Well, we'll just start right over again. Mr. Jefferson?
Well, the first thing we can't add to the existing wheel tax that we have. That has to go to referendum.
No, we're not adding. If we chose to do it, we wouldn't be adding like to what is already there. They're going to be paying more, but it's going to be going to something different, and we can do that.
I have a misunderstanding on that.
Basically what it is that you would, where you have a current $30 wheel tax that's currently in place. So what she is proposing is a secondary wheel tax, which would wind up, either $10 or $20 for the amount to make up, to be earmarked just for the purpose of salaries, as far as that for your, law enforcement and employees in general, really.
The $30 tax that is in place now, there would be no effect on
No,
that.
you-
at all.
No.
You cannot affect that.
The county commission can do another wheel tax. It's the same procedure though. You could either do it by majority vote, send it to referendum for vote by the general election, or you could do it by 2 consecutive 2/3 votes, which would be 10 votes each meeting. that, assuming that that passed, it would still be subject to referendum if there was 10% of the vote of the general election passed, that would present a petition to the commission.
That's all I want to say.
Mr. Knapp? Well, you led the way, but if you want to add any more, Ms. Green, go ahead.
Well, the whole reason why I just suggested it, and again, like I told you at the last meeting, if we can figure out another way, I'm good. My reasoning for proposing this was because I've heard it said several times this year already that we barely passed the budget this year, and we're already going into what little bit of light that we had, and this is only September. When I suggested this, it would be enough to cover and have a little money to go in to the general fund to cover for these things that's already coming up. I personally, when I'm doing my own budget, I like to have a cushion aside for emergencies, and I feel like as a county we need to do the same. I don't like I said a while ago, I don't like us passing something and saying, let's do this, and us not have a way to pay for it. It's no different than me needing tires for my car and not having a way to pay for them. I still can't go buy those tires, even though I need them, if I don't have the money to pay for them. It's the same with us. We know people have needs that come up, and we can't just say, yeah, we're gonna do it when we don't have money to pay for it. And this is just a way to generate a little bit of money to have in there for when those needs arise. And honestly, I just don't wanna keep putting it on the tax owners, the landowners. I feel like if we did a wheel tax, it would be, as a whole, everybody would, participate.
Ms. Stevens?
You said this $2 raise, this was just for road officers, right?
Correct.
I think it should include, first responders in general, like Kobe said, EMT, and corrections officers, because I think that there is a bigger turnover in the jail more than anywhere. I don't know that to be a fact. But with that being said, I think that would be great if we could give our first responders a $2 raise, but I think we should let the county vote on it. We should go to a referendum, even if it is a different wheel tax, because I don't want to impose something on them. When it gets to, like you said, Facebook world, everybody has an opinion on what they should make. Well, let's let them vote and see if they want to give our officers a raise. Or first responders, do they deserve it? Absolutely. They are underpaid, all of them are. But I don't think we should just impose it. I think we should let them vote on it. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Payne?
If this goes, if this is trying to push, you have got to tie this to one certain thing, right? This has got to be tied only to the sheriff's department?
No.
Where does it go then?
You'd wind up going to employee salaries in general, is what it'd wind up going to.
Okay, just to, for example, what would keep somebody from saying, why don't you all pass another wheel tax so we can get a raise?
Yeah.
I don't know, again.
And there's where you would wind up having that pool of money that would wind up going for that wheel tax, that would wind up going to, all county employee raises, that would come out. It would all come out of that general pool of money. Now, here's the thing, it's sooner or later, as more percentage raises comes and this, that, and the other, unless there's more vehicles that come, you're gonna hit a wall limit. This is the money you got. Well, if the money turns out to be more, then you're gonna have to wind up coming up with another source, because you're only gonna get in X amount of money, for that. And then sooner or later, you're gonna hit that wall of, that's what that percentage covers. Well, when you do, what are you gonna go to? Well, it's gonna go to your property tax. When whenever that money gets to the limit, you know, and you have to go beyond that limit, then that's where you'll have to, you know, reach in and it would be your property tax.
Well, I think, you know, just being, if I were another employee other than the sheriff, I would say, oh, wait just a minute, how's this fair that they got a raise and I didn't get one? That money's taxpayer money, I'm a taxpayer myself, why did I not become part of that? And I'm just saying, you know, that's, I don't know the right answer.
Ms. Keaton?
I think we should explore all the options on how to get raises before we decide just on the wheel tax. I think, I know a couple more were mentioned at the last meeting. I do feel like they need a raise, EMT and police officers. I would just like to look at other options also, a little further.
Ms. McGrew?
Well, I think, that they all deserve a raise, like we've all said before. And the wheel tax to me is probably more, if you wanna use the word fair, to everyone paying it rather than just the property owners paying everything. But, you know, whether that'll happen or if, even when we vote on it, there can still be a petition and people can come and voice their opinion about the wheel tax here too, so, you know,
Mr. Taylor?
I agree with Ms. Keaton, pretty much everybody else. We need to explore every option that we got. Some of our departments, it may be, have a position that could be moved. You know, that might be something we want to look at. I just think we need to look at every option that we got before we decide that we're gonna try to put any taxes on anybody.
Mr. Burke? Colby?
Ms. Keating and Stevens both mentioned my thoughts already, but I think if you did it for just the road officers, that would help your employee shortage there. I think it's gonna worsen the shortage at the animal service and the jail.
Ms. Chitwood?
Felicia, you can probably answer this question for me. We're, in 2020, our active motor vehicle registrations, she's talking about exempting people who are 65 and older.
Mm-hmm.
Our military, they're also exempt from the wheel tax as well, right? They are not.
They are not.
None of them?
If they are 100% disabled veterans, 100% service-connected disabled veterans, they are exempt in our current wheel tax.
FYI, if any of the commission wants to see the previous resolution that approved the past wheel tax, I've got it, hard form, or I can email it to you.
Does it have the exemptions in there
It
as well?
does.
Okay.
So active military, you know, just, they're not exempt.
Okay.
Burke?
Similar, just want to vet all the numbers that also were out.
Ms. Butcher?
I think the wheel tax is the fairest usually is because of this increase. But you mentioned it falling back to the property taxes. And then our tax rate right now is supposed to kind of, if everybody's raising and their taxes aren't supposed to go up. That's not how it is. And I've had a couple of calls, and my husband is a prime example, his property taxes went up $600. How much are they gonna make that tax rate go up to 175 or 190? With this new appraisal. So this new appraisal is affecting the taxpayers quite a bit already. One lady said, you're gonna put another $20 on me, and I can't pay my taxes now. But when you mention a tax rate, I think the wheel tax is the most fair because it gets more people. But I think we need to look at everything before we say, well, this is what we're gonna do. Come on, May, people gonna fuss and quarrel and we just live with it. But we gotta be fair. And if there's another way we can do it, then we need a better way, then we need to find that better way.
Anyone else want to bring up anything concerning the wheel tax here before we move on? If not, we'll move on to the next one there with the discussion of the Juvenile Detention Center. So with what you have before you is, the Budget Committee asked me to wind up doing research back in April and in May, as far as different things goes, as far as inmate population of the Juvenile Detention Center, the money collected and so on and so forth. So the one thing you have there before you, I asked Miss Kathy to wind up start keeping a inmate tally of basically of how many folks are housed there at the Juvenile Detention Center each day, for each week going on there. So what you have before you is, and how it's broken down is that if it's a state male or a state female, it was put down as such. If you're housing someone, let's say for Union County, you know, one local Union County male, it happened to be a Scott County female, one Scott County female. So, and as you see, that's how it wound up getting broken down as far as that goes. The second part of the sheet there that you wind up getting there, number 2, that is from Mayor Bill Britton from Hamlin County, which is where Morristown is. Basically, they've been, so basically what this is, the second part here is basically the discussion of going from a possible juvenile detention facility to a temporary holding facility for juveniles. And what a temporary is basically a 72-hour holding facility, at which time either a juvenile judge would wind up releasing said juvenile inmate after 72 hours, or wind up sending them to a juvenile detention facility to wind up being housed at that time. Of course, now if you wind up sending a juvenile that needs to go beyond, you'll wind up paying a price tag for whatever it is to house those juveniles wherever it is they go. Plus also you'll have transportation and so on and so forth. So what you have there on the first one is from Mayor Britton is the total expense that Hamlin County has for running a temporary holding facility, which they've ran one now for about 20 years. So their current total expense is $146,750. That includes 20% of the Juvenile Services Director's pay and benefits, one full-time employee that manages the facilities, pay and benefits, pay for TH attendants, temporary housing attendants who work on an on-call basis, contract services with Richard Bean Juvenile Detention Facility in Knoxville for longer detention for 72 hours, transportation to and from Richard Bean, food, training, communications, and utilities are also included in that budget. As far as the other one there that you have for Marion County, that one wound up being a little bit, so Mayor Jackson was in a little bit of a hurry, but I appreciate all the help he wound up giving me. Basically, they can house 2 folks at their temporary housing. They have 3 full-time employees. They have the same 72-hour hold. Their estimated cost for theirs is $160,000 a year. With their budget, we had to wind up sitting down and kind of basically carving out each piece of the pie there with his, because theirs includes a juvenile judge that is separate from their general sessions judge, 2 probation officers, and a list of other things that had to wind up just being removed when he wound up basically coming to $160,000 rough estimate of that. So basically, you know, if you did wind up going to a temporary holding facility, using just as a benchmark for what you would wind up having there, you currently, and as soon as you correct me if I'm wrong, you currently have 6 full-time employee slots and 3 part-time slots with juvenile detention now facility. So if you did wind up doing that, you'd basically looking at going down to 3 full-time employees and having a part-time available just in case you wind up needing what you would have. So you would wind up losing 3 full-time slots and you'd lose 2 part-time. So also for the sake of this discussion too, whenever we get through here, I'll ask Miss Kathy to speak, because it would only be fair to have her speak as director there as far as that goes. So if nothing else, as far as that goes, Ms. Kathy, would you like to go ahead and step up to the podium, or if you want to sit at the chair, you can sit at the chair, whichever one you want.
There's just a few things I had called, our licensing people. The licensing has to happen, whether it's a THR or a detention center. So I asked her a few questions, and number one, a THR does not contract with the state of Tennessee, so you don't get $178 a child. So these THRs that you call are not getting any revenue for housing other places because they won't, DCS won't contract with the THR. So that's one thing. Right now, I do have those slots, but right now I have 4 full-times and 2 part-times working. I'm training 2 part-time people right now, but right now I have 4 full-times and 2 part-time people. Now that's 7 days a week, 3 shifts. The state requires that we're supposed to have 2 people on every shift, whether it's a THR or a detention center. And as y'all know, I gave you that at the budget meeting. We're not in compliance right now with that. We switch over to a THR, they're going to want to see proof of 2 heads for each. I don't know how they're doing this at these other facilities. This came from the licensing lady that I just got off the phone with today.
Yeah, Ms. Hart.
Pardon me?
Ms. Hart.
No,
Okay.
no. It's Heather Hilton.
Here we go. That's right.
Yes. A THR, the maximum you can have is 8 beds. Another thing that I don't know that they gave you that information, you're not allowed to lock the doors on a THR except for one cell. The kids have movement through the whole facility. The doors cannot be locked. That's putting a lot of people at risk. Sometimes our unruly juveniles that we house are just as dangerous as the delinquent kids. I think everybody should consider that. Trying to think. Oh, something else too. I just want to throw that in there. I guess it kind of applies with the sheriff's department and the wheel tax and all that stuff. Something that I don't think anyone's considered is the jail, the ambulance service, the detention center, dispatch are the only offices in the county that have to work 3 shifts and weekends. The other offices are open 5 days a week, 9 to 5 or 8 to 4:30 or whatever. These other, so I just wish everyone would consider that about monies because it's hard to find 3rd shift people, etc. But our revenue, what it costs them to run these facilities, I think if you would look at our revenue coming in, probably we're doing better than what they are. They don't have revenue coming in like we do. If we have $180,000 revenue and our budget's $300,000, I don't see how we would benefit at all. And I know we would not benefit at all because they wouldn't license us unless we had 2 people every shift. And we don't even have them now, so. When we start applying for a license for a THR, we're gonna have to show proof that we've got that. I don't know, unless anybody's got any questions, I don't know what else to say.
Well, we'll start around the room again, so, Mr. Jeffers.
I don't have any questions, I just, have, expressed my discontent, with the loss of revenue that is coming from that facility. And, my bottom line is $110,000 a year that we're losing from our budget. That's my bottom line. And that's part of the reason that we're in this position that we're in right now.
We started when COVID hit, it hit us, and I made a few months back, I made a scale showing every year for the past 7 years or whatever, what we made and how we dropped during COVID. And it kind of shows that we're moving back up. But as you say, $110,000, but it's costing them $146. So if we went with the way they're doing things, we're still $36,000 ahead of them. I don't know.
Mr. Beck?
That's my concern, the money, Liz. That's my concern.
That's great.
I'd just like to see the numbers. I've not seen them. I'd just like to see, you know, how it's all broke down and everything.
Ms. Stevens?
I don't really know anything about the juvenile detention center as far as, like she said, numbers or, a temporary holding. I'm just learning all this for the first time, so I don't really have any questions or opinions on it.
Mr. Payne?
I also would like to see the bottom dollar, you know, which one's costing the most, which one the savings would be, if there could be any, and just see, you know, what it looks like.
I would like to see the numbers also.
Mr. Brooks?
And maybe a copy of the 7-year scale that you did, maybe?
I think I gave it to Mr. Jeffers back.
So maybe I can get it.
Did I give you one of those? You don't have that, do you? I can get you one.
Mr. Terry?
Oh, you said we're applying for a THR license, is that correct?
No. If we switch from a regular detention facility to a THR, we have to apply for a license and have licensing come out and approve that before we can open a THR. We just can't switch it and say we'll switch it.
Right.
It's the same. The only difference as far as is we can't have those doors locked. We'd have to remove the locks off the doors completely off the.
Except for one.
Yeah, two of them broke anyway, so. And the training for the employees, it just requires 28 hours a year versus 40. But there's really no expense there because I find that the only expense is CPR training right now, and that's required whether it's a THR or full-blown detention.
I have a question. So, I'm not sure who proposed the juvenile thing, but can someone explain exactly what you all are proposing? Because I must have misunderstood, because I was understanding like y'all were wanting to get rid of it altogether, but what she's talking about is like you're wanting to switch it from one thing to another.
Right. So basically what you have is this. There was the discussion of initially completely shutting it down. You know, that was the initial discussion. However, there was some concerns that if you did that, then you may wind up arresting a juvenile here, transporting to Knox County, possibly exposing someone to, you know, possibly more violent offenders in Knox County or wherever it is you wind up taking the transport to. So in order to wind up finding the happy medium to what it is that people were searching for in the middle, that would wind up basically taking care of your Scott County juvenile offenders would wind up being your temporary holding facility, because you would still have a place you could house Scott County offenders for up to 72 hours. At that point in time, the judge would make a discretionary call either to house them longer or wind up releasing them on their own recognizance, you know, until their next court date, as far as that goes. So with that being said, in order to find that, that's the reason why basically I looked up two temporary housing facilities, one being in Marion County, which has a population of about 6,000 people more than us, and see how their operation was kind of lined up budget-wise and so on and so forth. And then the other one would be in Hamilton County, which is triple our population, you know, basically see how they were running their temporary housing facility. So, and also, you know, speaking, when she spoke with Ms. Hilton, I've spoken with Ms. Hilton too, and, you know, I mean, as far as getting the criteria switched over to that, she assured me that, you know, it wasn't that tedious of a process to wind up getting done. So, now, with that being said, you know, she's basically like, you know, you're going to have one room where somebody's basically got a table and chairs and you're sitting there, and you can have, you know, one locked cell that you can wind up housing someone in if you go to a THR, temporary housing facility.
They have to have certain charges to be in that lock cell.
Right. So other than that, you know, they're just chilling out there in the room and kind of there you are. So, and the
Going
reason,
from a full-time to just a holding.
right, holding cell, basically, holding facility, yeah. You're going from a detention facility down to a temporary holding until, you know, for up to 72 hours for a judge to make a decision.
And what were you saying earlier about them not getting paid? Them, if they don't get paid for, did you say state?
We have a state contract, it's what, $180,000 a year, maybe something roughly. I don't know what it is this year.
We have
because we had a-
$178.90 a day.
Yes, that's what they pay us a day to house state detainees.
But with a temporary holding,
You don't get anything.
you don't house a state prisoner. The only thing you do is if an officer makes an arrest, they're taken to the holding facility. And just basically, they can be housed there for up to 72 hours until the judge makes a discretionary call on what, you know, in this case, what she would like done. You know, so I mean, it's kind of like one of those, so what would that do for you if, you know, speaking as a former officer, I wound up arresting a juvenile, you know, there, I can wind up transporting them to the holding facility over here, they got 72 hours. You know, after that, the judge will make a call on whether or not to keep them there. I mean, as far as letting them go, or transport them on to Knox County, like I said, now, at which time you'd wind up paying a bill for housing, you'd have to, you know, get a legal agreement with that. You know, as far as that goes, as far as for them to have, you'd have to have a contract, just like the state does with us. So, you know, and then of course, if you had to do that transport, depending on the charge, you know, you go over there, pick them up, bring them back, you know, back and forth, you know. But for the majority of the charges that we seem to have here in Scott County, I'd say the vast majority would wind up being 72-hour hold and probably come back to report date.
So this THR would only have Scott County juvenile and not anyone else, right?
I mean, what you may wind up having is, I mean, it wouldn't house state inmates. It would not house state inmates. What you would have is, and what could possibly happen is I got a Morgan County juvenile that would come up and, you know, get into trouble. Well, Scott County Sheriff's Department would wind up arresting the Morgan County juvenile and housing here 72 hours, but it would be up to the Scott County judge on what to wind up doing as far as that goes.
But they would have to be arrested in Scott County in order to be locked.
Yes.
So would we get funding then for that, if it's a temporary holding facility, if we're arrested?
No.
So you think though by switching that it's gonna save the county money, is that what you're thinking?
You cut employees.
Okay.
It would not, I just don't understand how you're gonna license and cut employees, because right now, what we got right now wouldn't cover 7 days a week if we was in compliance.
It's been years since that place has been in compliance. Because I know as a deputy, when I've arrested people on night shift, I've had to take over and they haven't. And, you know, and I know there's been times they dialed 911 and they needed help, because it was just one, you know. So, I mean, as far as the compliance issue, I mean, that's one of those, if it hasn't been, then that's one that, you know, here we've been for all these years.
Is it in compliance now?
No. I submitted it to the budget committee meeting that I brought the contract that you all approved for the mayor to sign, saying that we was gonna go by these rules and be in compliance, and one of them was that we have 2 people on every shift. I was told no, I couldn't have the money for the employees, but then you all signed the contract saying we was gonna go by the rules, so I'm a little confused on that, but that's the way it happened.
So the way it is now, if there is not an inmate there, is there still somebody there working?
We have not had no inmates in a long time. We did have an issue the 1st of July. And we had some doors broke. It took the maintenance department 10 days to get those doors fixed.
There was 2 or 3 days in August where you didn't have an employee working a night shift. And that's just because the state inmate was only there for a few hours and they were cut loose. But there was a few shifts that, you know, there wasn't anybody working.
So they have to be there whether there's anyone, whether there's a juvenile there or not.
Yes, but like I said, that's that would be very, very, very rare not to have someone there. There's never been a full 24-hour period that we've not housed someone.
And basically what they're talking about as far as the money save goes from that is basically where you're budgeted at $292,000 and change is being able to wind up getting it down to say a number of $160,000 for a temporary holding, which wind up saving you, $132,000.
Yes, I understand, but to get it down, we're losing our revenue, so it's not balancing out. You're not.
You're not getting the revenue. You're not getting any.
Did you?
We get revenue right now.
Okay.
What does Knox County have?
As far as what?
We don't get rid of
Juvenile? I think they have a 120 bed facility.
What are the distressed counties?
Most of them,
Yeah, huh?
most of them, Moore County doesn't have a facility. Citrus County does.
We are a distressed county, right?
Mm.
So how many county juveniles do we have that, and you probably can't answer this right now, and that's okay, but can we get a breakdown of how many county juveniles that we have that stay over 72 hours?
How many Scott County
Mhm.
juveniles that stay over? There would probably be very few. Now, we did have a few that had some major charges that stayed longer. We had a couple that ended up in state custody that had stayed, until they were moved into the state bed. And then we continued housing them, but the state paid us to house them. One thing that kind of hurt us, we raised our local rate for Morgan, Campbell, et cetera, from 125 to the state rate, 178.90. They're not sending them to me no more. I went from $2,000 to $3,000 a month in local housing down to $500 a month. They're sending them to Knox County because they can get a cheaper rate there. I think we really made a mistake by doing that.
How many months ago was that rate?
But
How many months ago was that rate, up to 178 or whatever?
that started in the 1st of July.
Is that a mandatory state rate? 178?
The state always does their contract every year, and they raised it to from 134, I think is what it was, to 178. That's the biggest raise we've ever had with this state. So we've not had a full year at that rate.
So did they raise that in Knox County also? Morgan County's paying that same thing at Knox County?
No, Knox County's charging $125. That's
But
what we
there's
used
a
to
state
charge.
inmate that's staying in Knox County, then Knox County's making $178.90 off of them. Because that's just a state rate. To my understanding.
So where would our juveniles go if we had a THR and they had to stay over 72 hours? Where would we send them to?
The officers would have to call, someone would have to call and try to find a bed empty in another juvenile detention facility to see if they would accept them. And here's an example. We had a Morgan County juvenile that had to leave because of a major incident. And Judge Davis stayed on the phone for 4 hours that evening, and I stayed on the phone trying to help him till like past 11 o'clock that night, trying to find a bed for that juvenile to go to be moved from our facility.
Why couldn't you keep him?
Pardon me?
Why couldn't you keep him? If you're not temporary housing, why did he have to be moved?
We had a major incident at the facility that he was involved in.
Oh, okay, all right. I didn't catch that part, I'm sorry. But he had to be moved.
Mr. Burke, we'll keep continuing on down the line.
Do we have any kind of estimate what it would cost us if we didn't have a juvenile facility here at all to send them somewhere else? I mean,
No
we
number
have
on
an
that.
average number per year that Scott County has.
The only thing I know, the number you'd have right off that, you just completely got rid of it. The only number you'd have right off would be $292,000 you'd have there less, but then you'd have to wind up figuring out your prisoner transport, with your sheriff's department, that would fall on them.
How many counties in the state do not have juvenile facilities?
I don't pay that number, I don't know.
There are bigger of 8 years. And I think Ginger, you got those numbers for me?
Not
If you-
long ago.
Okay, and it showed the last 5 years had lost money in the last 5 years. It was around between $100,000 and $110,000 a year for the last 5 years. But I got those numbers during the budget process.
Ms. Chitwood?
Yeah.
Anything else you want, okay, Mr. Burke?
I just wanna, I guess, see last year revenue numbers and kind of weigh the process out of the 290 or the 126, and what it's bringing in, just like to see the numbers more for the decision to make.
Ms. Butler? All right, thank you, Ms. Kathy.
Well, let me mention one more thing, and I don't think it's probably a good time to bring it up, but last year or the year before, the commission voted that the juvenile center would make exactly what the jail made. Y'all gave them a 52-cent raise over a month ago, and you didn't give it to my people. And there's a resolution that says that they're supposed to have it, and they didn't give it, so. Like I said, I know it's not a good time to bring that up.
Mayor Jeffers, could I address the commission?
Is that okay with the commission?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
I don't want to add to anything Ms. Ella said. She's the director and she has all those numbers. But before, I guess this is in response to maybe something Mr. Jeffers said, whether we have a detention center or whether we have a temporary holding facility, it will be devastating to our community if we don't have one of those two. Our parents, our custodians, our school systems, everybody, juvenile probation officers, everyone that deals with juveniles. When there's a problem, sometimes for a parent or a guardian, it's just simply take them to juvenile for a night. The next morning they come before me and we have deterred behavior. They now know their parents mean it. They know that they're gonna be back in court if they don't straighten up. And I can't tell you what percentage that is that deters that behavior, but it's a pretty significant deterrent. If we don't have a facility here, then what's gonna happen is officers are gonna be citing these children to court. Parents are still gonna get a slap on the hand, and we're not gonna deter any of the behavior. And then sometimes they need to be there, as a punishment for a couple more days. Kids don't go to truants, or don't come to truancy court. They're truant from our schools, so they've got this unruly conviction. And then we put them in truancy court, which is every Monday morning at 7 o'clock. Let's say they don't come. Parents say, you know, they're 10th grade, I can't get them up, I can't physically get them moving. Then what I've done is I've been able to sign an order, an officer will go get them, bring them to court, and then I put them in detention facility for the night. The next morning, parents pick them up, take them to school without stopping by Hardee's, just going straight to school. And then I have seen my truancy rate, since I took the bench, drop about 35%. That's huge. And a big part of that is this detention facility. That's just one of the examples I could give you. But parents and guardians, they need that to deter the behavior so that the children can move on. So, before you chose to, in the future, I know you're not deciding tonight, but in the future, I would really ask you to really consider not closing it all together. Our community needs it, and if we don't use it for one night to deter the behavior, then they're gonna start going outside their parents' home and committing the crimes. Then we're gonna be transporting them to another county, and we are not doing our youth any good if we close the facilities. That's really all I wanted to say.
So as long as we have a temporary holding facility would be, as long as we have that, I think it would be.
When Mayor Jeffers called me, I told him that this is just a guess, but probably 80 at least 80%, maybe 90% of our children could be served in a holding facility. Any other questions? Thank you for the opportunity, sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Judge. Anybody else have anything on Mr. Chadwell?
Yes, sir.
Look at the minutes, nope, Mr. Chadwell is here. So, I know, so I told everybody you'd be late because you had prior engagements, so is there anything that you want to speak on while we're here? Give you a chance before we go into other matters?
No.
Okay, all right. So as far as other matters goes, Commissioner Jeffers wound up speaking on a possible sales tax increase option that could wind up being there that would basically take the sales tax rate from 9.25% to 9.75%, which would wind up being the state maximum that it could wind up going to. So,
Well, the intention was, I thought everybody was just throwing out options here. And I know that we do have an option of going with the local option sales tax. The local option sales tax right now is currently 9.25 cents. We could raise it to 9.75. We collect 2.25 cents off of that, and we could raise it to 2.75. What that would do, if you went to the store, grocery store, or whatever, and buy something, $100 worth of something, it would make about 50 cents difference in your pay, in what you pay. But now, over the last 4 years, in General 101, that has more than doubled. This shows you how much the economy is growing in Scott County. In 4 years, our economy has grown. It's went from $310,498 to $652,468 in 4 years. That's what we put into General 101 only. The schools actually get $1.97 million in local option sales tax per year, and we put in our debt fund about $100,000 a year. That's not including what we give Winfield, Huntsville, and Oneida. And I just wanted to throw that out there and say that is an option. And I don't know the process, if that would have to go to, if we could pass it here, or if it would go, if we need to put that on referendum. I'm not sure about that part. But it is an option, and I think that it's worth looking into. It's an option other than the wheel tax. But we get a lot of money off of this local option sales tax. And I'm not saying for or against it, but this is an option that needs to be looked at. And
so is anybody going around there as far as that goes? Mr. Daniel, want to add anything to that?
I think we should look at all options.
Ms. Gray?
I agree we should look at all options, but the only thing that concerns me about increasing sales tax is that we can't exempt anybody from that. We can't exempt the elderly or the military or anybody for that matter from sales tax.
Mr. Chadwick?
The sales tax is certainly fair tax. It hits everybody, like you said. And everything needs to be considered, but I just like to look at some exact numbers of how much it would be bringing in. I don't know, Ms. Renee's office to be able to get us those numbers more, or
Ms. Renee's
what, but just exact numbers of that, what we have. But it needs to definitely look like, David's right.
Ms. Stevens?
I don't know much about the local option sales tax. I thought that ours was kind of higher than other places. I could be wrong, I don't know. But like everybody else said, I'd like to see, I guess, how that could help us versus the others, and let's just look at all options.
Your Payne?
About the same, just to see how much many $1,000s it would generate, or how much it would generate in a year's time, if that was done.
Ms. Keaton?
I'd like to see the numbers also, to see how much money it would possibly generate.
Mr. Burke?
About the same.
Mr. Terry? Mr. Burke?
I don't have anything.
Ms. Butler?
What I tell the sales tax, people that come in from other places, we could collect money from them also, if they come in.
And
Not just Scott County people, but all these vacationers and things that come on, they spend money. That'd be revenue from them too.
One thing I would add, if, whatever option that we go with, I would not, support anything that didn't include all Scott County employees. Not just the sheriff's department, I think that all Scott County employees needs to have a raise. Because any office that you go into, they have the same problem as the sheriff's department does, about getting employees. They're underpaid, every position in the county is underpaid. If you went into local option sales tax, we could talk to the schools and it would be their option. And, we'd say, hey, if we do this, why don't you give your janitors, your bus drivers, why don't you give those people a raise too? Because the money is there for them to do that. I just wanted to put that in there. But I would like to see not just the sheriff's department, every employee in Scott County that we employ to get that raise, because they deserve it just as much as the sheriff's department does. And that's basically the only department that we can talk about in the last several months.
And in closing remarks to that, as far as that goes, if you did wind up going across the board, and I mean, to me, if he's going to wind up being impactful, considering the times that we're in, even remotely, because just like the conversation earlier for a deputy, going from $14.92, if you did a 15% increase, taking to $17.50. Well, the same if you wind up being for an office worker, if you did that, I mean, you would basically have an office worker. Now you're in the upper 14.75, 14.90, as far as starting. But that's one thing I asked Ms. Ginger to wind up giving an approximate, because she was busy today as always on the one day. So it was one of those I asked her to put together an approximate of what it would be for a 15%. Come next budget year, wind up going, and your 15% will wind up costing you approximately $590,000 for recurring money.
And that's estimate.
That's estimate. So I mean, that's lock, stock, and barrel. So I mean, if worst case scenario came there and you had to wind up breaking glass, in case of emergency on your property tax, it'd be about 12 cents, because your cent is worth $50,030. So, but other than that, unless anybody else has anything to bring up on other matters, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by David Jeffers, have a second. Second by Sean Terry. Any objection?